Treehouse 21 kicks off with Professor Frink delivering a March-style warning to the audience. Right. Enter at her own risk, we got it. Then it rolls into War and Pieces. Now, I should be happy that it has a board game-driven plot, but they missed a big chance to reference some modern game classics. And really, the whole thing was just an empty Jumanji-style story, so Next is Master and Cadaver. Homer and Marge rent a boat and sail to the middle of nowhere for Snuggles. They rescue a castaway who they come to suspect is a murderer, which turns them into murderers. I guess it's contagious. Finally, Tweenlight. Yes, it's a Twilight parody, but Daniel Radcliffe is the vampire, and Milhouse is the werewolf. Wouldn't that make him a warehouse? And several welcome vampire cameos. Sorry. Welcome vampire cameos, blah blah blah. Oh, and add another Flanders kill to the list. Only this time they eat him also. Well, that's a new one. Treehouse 22 begins with Marge dressed as a witch again. Only this time she snatches candy and replaces it with dental hygiene products. Last time she just ate kids. This is evil. First up is the diving bell and the butterball. The pitch went something like, Homer is paralyzed by a spider bite and learns to communicate with flatulence. Then a second spider bite turns him into a superhero, still paralyzed, who can shoot webs out of his butt. This is the most useful Homer's fat ass has ever been. Moving on to Dial D for Diddley. Flanders goes full Dexter and believes he's getting kill orders from God himself. But naturally it turns out to be a Homer prank. And some other stuff happens. Skip. Lastly is In the Navi, which is a by-the-numbers parody of Avatar. Unobtainium is replaced by Hilarium. The blue alien species is replaced by Kang and Kodos' green Rigelian species. And Bart gets laid. Wait, what? Isn't he like 10? Anyway, then the cast comes out to tell you to go Christmas shopping. So we better do as they say. Treehouse 23 begins by explaining that the end of the world in 2012, according to the Mayan calendar, was the Simpsons' fault. I mean, at this point, what isn't? The first segment is the greatest story ever told. Springfield builds a not-so-super collider, though it does create a mini black hole that Lisa adopts as a pet. However, the Simpsons misuse it like they do every supernatural privilege. They feed it, poke it, throw their garbage into it. But in the end, Maggie's pacifier saves the day, like that time on Elm Street. Next is Unnormal Activity. This one would make the haunted house list, but it's really just Marge's personal tormentor, so it really doesn't count. No Indian burial grounds, no computer installations. But thirdly is Bart and Homer's excellent adventure. Too bad Bart to the Future was already used. Bart travels back in time and screws up his parents' first meeting. But he makes out like a bandit, so hey, now it's up to Homer to use the machine and fix everything. And he is just so good at fixing things. Anyway, the world didn't end in 2012, so to be continued. Treehouse 24 is blessed with an incredible intro from Guillermo del Toro, with monster movie references aplenty. Pirate approved. But then we're slapped with, oh, the places you'll don't. Attempts to imitate Dr. Seuss's writing never seem to go well, but they gave it their best shot. The Fat in the Hat abducts the 3 Simpsons children and runs amok on Halloween night. If this is some story that the real-life kids are telling a therapist, I worry about some of the things that we see happen. Second, there's Dead and Shoulders. There have been a few two-headed combinations of Simpsons characters, but this time it's a full segment. Bart's head gets attached to Lisa's body, and he goes on a mission to cut hers off. Pretty grisly. But by the end, there are several more two-headed combos. And lastly, Freaks No Geeks. Citizens of Springfield become circus performers and attractions. Homer cooks up a bizarre marriage murder plot involving Marge marrying Moe for profit. Of course, it ends badly, but at least it ends. Treehouse 25 takes a moment to celebrate its quarter-century milestone. Then we're off to School is Hell. Lisa translates an ancient inscription, which rhymes in English, naturally, and Bart reads it aloud without hesitation, naturally. They're transported to the elementary school of the underworld. But here, Lisa is popular, and Bart's an honor student. I guess we're all looking for our place. Then we're off to A Clockwork Yellow. The show wants to remind us that it's not just for kids by parodying A Clockwork Orange. But then it makes with the silly talk, with phrases like Twiggy Wick, Woolly Bully, Viddy Balls, Chunky Wunks, Gob Toppers, and Noggin Boggin. That's fun to say. Lastly is The Others. This one counts as a haunted house story. But the ghosts are their former Tracy Ullman selves from the 80s. Can they be dead and the same people? Anyway, they make it about Homer having to choose between the 2 Marges, which is kinda dumb. It's fun, but not as fun as Chunky Wunks. Treehouse 26 starts with an intro from Ren and Stimpy's own John Kay and features a spooky little number called The Soul Candy Song. The first segment is called Wanted, Dead, Then Alive. Sideshow Bob finally kills Bart, for real. But now his life is empty, so he finds a way to reanimate Bart so he can kill him again and again. Yep, that's the plot. Oh, and he drinks wine with a few drops of Bart's blood in it. Remember when Moe did that with Homer's blood? Apparently the Simpsons make great cocktail mixers. Next is Homerzilla. Homer takes his third turn as a giant monster, only this time he eats no one. But his father is killed by inhaling a donut sprinkle. That doesn't really count toward our donut curse list, but it is worth a mention. Lastly is Telepaths of Glory. Lisa and Milhouse get superpowers, Chronicle style. But Milhouse goes all supervillain until he's stopped by Maggie, who gets her own superpowers. Now Marge is the only one of the five who hasn't been a superhero, except for, being a mom. Treehouse 27 starts with a visit to a Christmas tree lot on Halloween night. Then there's a Planet of the Couches gag that's viewable in VR via Google Cardboard. Fancy schmancy. The first segment is Dry Hard. The world is low on water and the children must fight to the death to see who gets to go swimming for a day. It's basically Mad Max and Hunger Games smashed together. And the theme seems to be that if you use common sense when voting, then you won't have to live under or overthrow tyrants. Sounds reasonable. Next is BFF RIP. A jealous imaginary friend is killing Lisa's living friends after Lisa outgrows her. If I can't have you, then no one can, and all that. Lisa then uses her imagination to defeat her. Kinda like how they solved that Grand Pumpkin problem a few specials back. Third is MOEFINGER. This is a James Bond parody. Not much else to say. Except after a crowd fight scene, Flanders appears to be lying dead with a knife in his back. But there's no way to know whether he was killed by a Simpson or not, so we're gonna skip the list. The episode begins and ends by celebrating its 600th episode milestone. And hey, that's a bloody impressive number. Treehouse 28 starts with CG candy versions of The Simpsons, who also eat candy. Candybles? First up is The Exorcist. Maggie becomes possessed by a demon who makes her talk like Wolfman Jack, and she kills Flanders before she's cured. Does that make the kill list? The next segment is Coralisa. Lisa's room has a secret door that leads to an ideal version of her family. This and the ghost versions from a few specials back are really building the Simpsons verse. To stay there, she must replace her eyes with buttons. But she's a Simpson, so it's a no-brainer. Button me up. Thirdly is, Homer. Lisa warns the audience before this one, and she's right. The Simpsons go on vacation without Homer, who stays home, takes off his pants, and eats all the food in the house. Then he discovers self-cannibalism, which he likes better than regular food. Yes, folks, you heard that right. The rest of the bit is watching him cut himself up, cook, and eat. And that's the episode. I'm gonna go barf now. Treehouse 29 sees the return of clever tombstones. And we get to watch Homer take on the mighty Cthulhu in an eating contest. Homer, of course, wins and then eats the monster. There are literally no limits to what this man can consume anymore. The first segment is the intrusion of the Body Switchers. Here we imagine the Body Snatchers invasion in the smartphone generation. Distracted people are easy to snatch. Then is multiplicity. Lisa drugs and kidnaps Bart after he tricks the teacher into giving her an F. She also nabs Milhouse and Nelson, because witnesses? They get locked in the basement and she does the split thing, taunting them with various accents and show tunes. Sure, why not? Lastly is Geriatric Park. It's basically a retirement home and a medical experimentation facility. But it's branded and marketed like a theme park, so of course the Simpsons put Grandpa there. But he gets turned into a dinosaur, so hey, new story to tell. I think the intro was the cleverest bit this time. Treehouse 30 calls Maggie's parentage into question again by suggesting that she's an orphan with a Freddy Krueger backstory who gets traded for an unnamed and unwanted Simpsons boy. Oh, and she's evil again, and she kills Ned Flanders again. Haven't we seen this one already? But here's the real shocker. This is episode 666. Coincidence? Nah. The first segment is called Danger Things. Lazy. Get ready for a Kids on Bikes parody with a bazillion 80s callbacks. You know you love it. Then it's Heaven Swipes Right. Homer chokes on a hot dog and has another out-of-body experience. And as before, he gets sent back, but this time it's not to do a redemptive act. It's because he was too early, so he gets put into someone else's body instead. And after explaining it to Marge, they go on a body swapping spree. Yeah, don't think too hard about it. Finally, when Harry met Slimy, Kang and Selma get busy and find loyal adversaries as well as formidable foes along the way. And the whole thing ends with a Thanos snap. And that's 30. The 31st Treehouse of Horror hits on November 1st in the US. So unless you're in Canada or have Canadian friends, spoiler alert. First, the Simpsons encourage you to vote. Then we go to Toy Gory. Bart treats his toys like Andy's neighbor Sid does, and they rise up and attack him. Such glorious justice! And glorious CG animation. Next is Into the Homerverse. An army of alternate universe Homers assemble, and they're much smarter than that clone army from the earlier special was.
And one of them kills Ned Flanders. Add that to the list.
It's also Homer's second connection to Spider-Man. Then there's B9 Rewind. Lisa and Nelson are stuck in a death loop together. He's actually more of a protagonist than I'm used to.
But he still has the heart of a bully.
Ha ha! And that is our 31 days of Halloween Simpsons. Thanks for watching. Have a happy
And safe
Halloween! Creepy.